Hello, Angels. Welcome back. Music Corner, as always. Host Lavender here, and we are still recapping the year of 2024. We have done some of the more boring work of talking about the best singles and albums of the year, and now it's time to talk about the hits, the songs that no matter what you did, you could not escape hearing. And for this specific list today, we're going to talk about a lot of songs that I wish I could have escaped hearing. That is right. It is time for the annual 2024 edition of my worst hit songs of the year list. These are definitely the videos that I put as much effort and writing into as anything that gets posted on this channel, and you guys always really seem to like them, so thank you for another year of observing and consuming my content. Looking forward to 2025. Let's go ahead and flush out the worst of the big songs that 2024 had to offer. Real quick programming note, the classification of what is and is not a hit for this list is the same as it's always been on my lists. Any song that spent 2 weeks in the top 20 of the Hot 100 or landed on the year-end Hot 100. We do that to get songs that were omnipresent, even if they never peaked super duper high on the list, and to avoid album bombs where a big artist can dump their entire track list of a new record in the top 20, only for it to fall out the next week, because that's not really what we're looking for here. And that's kind of really all I need to say in advance of this video. Otherwise, we're going to count down a top 10, but first we're going to talk about 5 honorable mentions that were adjacent to the list, even if they didn't make the final cut. And we're going to start off with a track that fans on TikTok realized they hated long before it wore me down all the way.
Did your boobs stop working? Did your truck break down? Did you burn through money? Did your ex find out?
You know your song is only hitting on TikTok when you have to literally rename the track so that it specifically highlights the only part of the song that anyone remembers. I can't say that the sound of this track is outright horrible right out of the gate, but wow, do these refrains start to get annoying really quickly. And for what it's worth, the attitude that Dasha is bringing to this song is completely unearned, especially if this is what she was leaving Austin to make.
In 40 years, you'll still be here, drunk wash up in Austin.
The best thing about this song is that it introduced me to this genius lyrics annotation, which takes it extremely seriously. Like, this thing is acting as if Austin is some fucking Shakespearean tragedy, and I'm pretty sure not even anyone involved in the process of creating this is taking it that seriously. Next up, Bryson Tiller's Fall Off should be studied by historians.
I'ma take a bougie ass to Rodeo and then let her pick up whatever she want. CC Gucci Hippo, take her whatever she want.
I swear to God, I liked Trap Soul. I still kind of like Trap Soul, but hearing Bryson Tiller's new music kind of works retroactively on me and makes me forget why I ever really enjoyed it in the first place. This song absolutely features the most nothing vocal performance of 2024. It sounds like Bryson Tiller was woken up and recorded these vocals before he could even get out of bed. Isn't soul supposed to be half of this guy's sound?
Hit it in the shower, made her tell me what you want. Like I'm singing Maze, I made her tell me what you want.
The saving grace of this track, honestly, and I can't believe I'm saying this, is the lyrics where there is some genuinely hilarious hedonism, in particular the line about the back shots sounding like Waka Flocka ad-libs. I also love the fact that ultimately on the track, Bryson understands that at the end of the day, he still has to get his girl whatever she wants, and that's kind of the central conceit of the song, which is good. I just wish he could sound alive while singing it. Next up, a song that certainly everyone involved was wide awake for. One of those tracks, a handful pop up every year that just seems to be kind of annoying on purpose to get attention. Normally, I'm pretty good about seeing through them and not putting them on the list, but about once a year, one slips through, and yeah, this one. Before I incur the wrath of K-pop stans for this opinion, I will say I liked the other tracks on Rosie a lot more than this one, and it kind of has a gimmick that I understand, that sort of sledgehammer bluntness that Blackpink have done well on some of their best tracks, but it just does not work here, and the results, God, this song is aggravating.
Kissy face, sent to your phone, but I'm trying to kiss your lips for real.
This song has a garish, clacking beat, these thin, awful little thumping drums that have absolutely no resonance to them whatsoever, this really annoying cheerleader chant chorus, and worse than anything else, a complete mismatch in energy from the two vocalists that are performing together.
I'm talking drink, dance, smoke, freak, party all night. Come on. Come back, girl, what's up?
This song truly does feel like a throwback to a brighter, punchier era of pop music, the sunnier stylings of the early 2010s, better known as when Bruno Mars sucked. Elsewhere, Future had a pretty good year this year.
We don't trust you niggas, we don't.
I don't trust no motherfucking body.
I enjoyed the first album he dropped with Metro Boomin quite a bit. I got to see them perform together, headlining Rolling Loud, and it absolutely kicked ass. The song Like That became the inflection point for the biggest story in all of music this year, and the track Ice Attack, might be my favorite trap song of 2024. But unfortunately, there's also this.
I don't hang with rats, that's some new type shit. Get a nigga wet, them news type shit.
This song just reminds me of Future at his most tepid and annoying, and this church bell instrumental on the first half does not sound anywhere near as hard as Metro Boomin seems to think it does. Not to mention the Utopia-esque beat switch up into a Travis Scott chorus that is one of the least memorable, worst, and loosest refrains I have ever heard him deliver, which absolutely grounds the momentum of the song to a halt.
Pop it right about the blue type shit. Put the double O in the moon.
Not that I was ever expecting this thing to be a lyrical masterpiece or anything, but I don't even think its flexes are very compelling. Some of the dumbest rap lyrics of the year, some of the dumbest attempts at bragging pop up on this song, and if not for a half-decent Playboi Carti feature, it may have made the list proper. This thing just does not come anywhere close to the level of talent of everyone involved. And the final honorable mention is the first country song we're going to talk about today, not the last, and it is going to get a lot worse than this.
I'ma take the high road, maybe get stoned, have a little too much of something terrible.
This track isn't awful, but it may be the very lamest thing I heard this year. The lyric on the chorus about getting stoned and having a little too much of something terrible is kind of all you need to know. Not to mention the fact that it poses as if throwing your hands up, running away from your problems, and pretending to ignore the issues in a relationship every single time they come up is somehow taking the high road.
Rumors always turning and yelling and fighting, and once it's in your mind, only one way you're driving.
It's not good. In fact, it's at least a few measures worse than your average country hit. But the track also features Jesse Murph, who really, honest to God, may be the worst current star in country music. I didn't get the chance to talk about her Jelly Roll crossover Wild Ones last year, but honest to God, it may go down as one of the worst hits of this entire decade.
Got me wide open, got a 45 on him, and he pushing about 100 into.
I do genuinely think High Road deserves to be here, but even if I didn't, I would consider putting it on the list just to get Jesse Murph a long overdue appearance on the worst list. And that's it for honorable mentions. Time for the top 10. Starting at number 10, and speaking of Jelly Roll,
I'm just a long-haired son of a sinner.
a few years ago when Jelly Roll first broke through, I thought he was novel in a kind of appealing way, and his rapper turned country star style clicked with me, which, believe it or not, was a lot more unique just a few years ago. Even though I wasn't crazy about his song Son of a Sinner, I thought it was fine, and I was more than comfortable with him hanging around, and hang around he did as he released a pretty successful follow-up album. But in the past year, he has become a mainstay of inspirational award show acceptance speeches, and somehow that viral popularity has catapulted him into honest-to-God superstardom. It's like Jelly Roll is the guy you call if you want a hit song. You think I'm joking, but like I swear to God, having Jelly Roll on your song in 2024 was like having Rihanna or Justin Bieber. But the only problem is, this fucking guy will work with anybody. In addition to dropping 2 of the worst songs of last year, he teamed up with Eminem, Post Malone, MGK, Joyner Lucas, Ronnie fucking Radke. Yeah, suddenly I am not okay with the omnipresence of Jelly Roll.
I am not okay. I'm barely getting by.
This absolutely was not the worst Jelly Roll song of the year. Mind you, only the worst one to qualify as a hit through my own metrics, but I don't want to let the song off too easy. It does suck. This track is exactly what happens when your inspiring speeches have been shared on Facebook so many times that you presume everything you say is hashtag relatable just because it's you who's saying it.
So if I say I'm fine, just know I learned to hide it well.
Jelly Roll was never exactly complicated in his songwriting, but at the very least, he was authentic. He could make you believe that he meant what he was saying and that it was coming from a place of real pain. But this shit is so see-through. It's like he ripped this straight out of the Emily Beihold book of pandering. And if you think the song title of I Am Not Okay is uninspiring, wait until you read some of the lyrics to this song. Not to mention the chorus where Jelly Roll has to go, "Hey guys, aren't we all not okay?"
Who can relate? Woo!
And then tries to spin it around to some positive generalities at the end, but doesn't really do any of the legwork to explain why that positivity should exist in the first place, save for some religious garble snuck into the song's bridge. This sounds like a Jelly Roll song written by ChatGPT. It's so see-through, it's so generic. I just don't see how anyone is actually buying this.
I'm not okay. And that's alright.
Number 9. So, misogyny, it sucks, obviously. But it's impossible to be a fan of almost any genre of music without encountering it. And almost everyone swallows their pride every once in a while for a song that's a total banger but has a questionable lyric or two. When it really starts to bother me, though, is when you can tell that it feels authentic. You can tell that the person who wrote the song really does mean it in as misogynistic a way as possible. That's when I start to think, am I really okay with this after all? And yet somehow we learned this year that the only thing more pathetic than that is doing all of that authentic misogyny while it is painfully obvious that you are not getting any whatsoever. May I present to you
I like the way you kiss me. I can tell you miss me. I can tell it is.
Meet Artemis, better known as the contingency plan in case Rex Orange County's sexual assault case had gone the other way. And yet he brings even less to the table than that. The Rex Orange County comparisons are fairly obvious. This kid has a similar vibe and aesthetic to his music, and a lot of his early work reminds me a lot of early Rex songs from projects like Apricot Princess. But if loving is easy for Rex Orange County, this song might as well be called Loving is Hard, and it doesn't help that Artemis isn't even fucking trying. You know the lyric I'm talking about. I know the lyric I'm talking about, so why waste any more time?
Not trying to be romantic. I'll hit it from the back just so you don't get attached.
This is probably the most embarrassing lyric of 2024, And while it is bad enough on its own, it really comes down to the delivery, which is performed with absolutely no confidence or swagger whatsoever. This is how you sing about sex when like rap videos and really, really boring straight porn is the only way you've ever experienced sex. Then as a listener, you think, oh, maybe he's just one of those guys who's so dashingly attractive that he never actually had to learn how to talk to girls.
Meter's expired.
I forgot to get quarters.
You know what? I got quarters.
But then you remember that people are comparing him to Rex Orange County for more reasons than one. Sorry, but if I took the attitude of songs into contention on this list, this track would skyrocket up to the very top, along with that dumbass Jelly Roll song. But there's part of me that can't help but love this bedroom pop aesthetic, and I can see a version of this melody with different lyrics and a different person singing it that works a lot better. But wow, in Artemis's hands, does this all just add up to way, way less than the sum of its parts.
I like the way you kiss me. I like the way.
Number 8. Artemis is off to a pretty good start in the sexism department, and if his career lasts long enough, he could be on the Mount Rushmore of misogyny one day. But if you really wanted to degrade women in 2024, you best stick to a tried and true expert. Kanye has been dropping sexist bars for literally 20 years, but it was a lot easier to ignore when his music was good. He spent the past few years falling off the deep end mentally, and now his output finally caught up, both in terms of the quality of his music and the quantity of his pure degeneracy, because this year he released 2 garishly awfully horny albums, so horny that they're difficult to listen to. And despite Carnival, with its frat bro sexuality being as raunchy as it is, it somehow wouldn't even crack the top 5 worst tracks Kanye dropped this year. No, instead, he chooses to do this.
Now I'm Ye Kelly, bitch. Now I'm Bill Cosby, bitch. Now I'm Puff Daddy Rich. That's me, to me, rich.
Listen, I'll be completely honest with you, and it pains me to admit this, but I don't really hate this song that much. The chorus is annoying, but it's a goddamn earworm. Plus, we're only on number 8, and this is already the second time that a Playboi Carti feature has made me feel much more strongly about a song than I would have otherwise. There weren't really that many songs that I just flat out hated this year, to the point that I even considered extending my eligibility to get a few of the really bad country songs that nearly missed the cut onto the list, many of which feature Jelly Roll. But what secured Carnival a spot on the list really is its awful, awful lyrics and garbage production. They come together to make it a deeply unpleasant listening experience. Anyone who still defends Kanye's personal antics has been functionally exiled to me for at least a few years now, but with how bad Vultures 1 and 2 were, this was the year I started to think that people still defending his music might be worthy of the same fate. Number 7. So I do not have anywhere near the biggest platform of anyone yapping about music on the internet, and yet backlash has found its way to me many, many times. I have incurred the wrath of several huge fan collectives of both Eastern and Western origin. Earlier this year, I even had a Swiftie tell me I needed to brush my hair. Yeah, a Swiftie. I've also taken it several times from rap Twitter, which I stand by it being a far worse place than Stan Twitter. It was this year, the year of our Lord 2024, that somebody brought up my Igor review in an argument. And a full 6 years ago at this point, a rap Twitter idiot who is actually still around and active posted the address of the school I was going to at the time in response to my Kids See Ghost review. Yeah, that happened. I've even beefed with artists themselves. Rap Ferreira came at me when my review of his album, which was positive, was apparently not positive enough. And washed ass indie pop band Group Love stuck their 10 remaining fans on me when they caught my review of their abysmal 2020 album Healer. All of this is to say that I am absolutely no stranger to backlash, and at points I've arguably welcomed it. However, I am not sure in the years I've been doing this, I have ever once been as scared of backlash for anything as I am for what I'm about to do right now. Are you ready for it?
The organizers say Chappell Roan's Thursday performance was the biggest daytime set in festival history, and it may be the biggest Lolla crowd ever.
Listen, I like Chappell Roan. I reviewed her album last year, and I had mixed but plenty of positive things to say about it. Pink Pony Club is one of those songs that will probably be a gay anthem for decades, and her true masterpiece, Casual, oh my god, was one of my favorite songs of 2023. But make no mistake, she is the single corniest artist in popular music. And while it was nice to see her lean into some of that campiness and drop one of her better singles that went on to become her biggest hit to date, I felt like I could hardly enjoy it in the shadow of her very worst song and what may be the most annoying pop hit of the past 5 years. Let's do this. I can already read the comments taking issue with the fact that this is higher than Kanye on the list, and I get it. It didn't start that way on my first draft, but literally more than any other song in this top 10, listening to Hot to Go again and again and again just feels like torture. I was not a huge fan of Jack Harlow's First Class, and I reluctantly enjoyed Nicki Minaj's Super Freaky Girl until this year when she finally came out as the worst person in the music industry. But I would take the spelling on the chorus of either of those songs before I ever listened to the 14 fucking times that Chappell Roan spells out the name of this song on this song. Each and every time doing it with all the catchiness of an air raid siren. Please fucking kill me. And let's be honest here. Chappell Roan writes about sex like she's been a lesbian for about 20 minutes. I fully believe that in real life, she's been knee-deep in the passenger seat several times, but in her songwriting, in her obsession with this corniness and this camp, she just cannot make it come to life. And I'm a fucking lesbian, so I can say that. It is hard to pick a worse lyric on this song when it just feels like one landmine after another after another. Chappell has already made plenty of good music that I love, and no doubt that she will continue to, but I think the goodwill that I and others have for all of her other music is the only reason she's been allowed to get away with Hot to Go. If Katy Perry released Hot to Go instead of Woman's World, she would have been rejected with the exact same fervor and deserved every single bit of it. Number 6. With country music being the most dominant genre of the year this year, plenty of artists from other genres tried their hand at the sound, and surprisingly, most of them went okay. While Beyonce may have done it the best and with the most spectacle, the artist who picked up the most chart success along the way was Post Malone. And believe me, his crossover into country music absolutely could have been the worst fucking thing ever. But surprisingly, it wasn't that bad. I had some help. It ain't like I can make this kind of mess all by myself. If I have one complaint about his record, it's an over-resilience on features, as he uses a lot of already existing country voices to help him bridge the gap into the genre. And occasionally that works great when he's collaborating with good artists like Chris Stapleton or Lainey Wilson. But when he teams up with a washed-up pretty boy who couldn't get taken seriously even in the peak of his career, you get shit like this.
Somebody pour me a drink, somebody bum me a smoke. I'm about to get on a buzz, I'm about to get on a roll.
I'll start this piece by highlighting Post Malone's versatility because I really don't want to seem like I'm just shitting on Post Malone. Though he broke through as a rapper, he's had some major hits with pop and even folk songs, and a lot of the more crossover-friendly country tracks on this record don't feel out of his wheelhouse at all. But when he tries to do this hick-ass country shtick, all of a sudden he sounds exactly like the dude who made White Iverson trying to be Luke Bryan.
40 hours got me going out my mind. Dallas dropped another game in overtime.
The lyrics here certainly don't do him any favors, although it does get off to a kind of funny start talking about Cowboys losses, which, hey, you know, this year, the cup runneth over. But all of the country euphemisms and the tired drinking fodder and just the general twang of the song all makes Post Malone feel like the biggest fucking poser. But in one sense, an idiot as bumbling as Blake Shelton is kind of perfect for a song this corny. When you hear the first hook, it just does not feel like something that should be coming out of Post Malone's mouth. But the second time around, Blake sings it, and you start to understand who the song was really written for.
Yeah, I've been breaking my back, just keeping up with the Joneses. Y'all know what I mean. Yeah, y'all know how it goes.
Throughout the song, Blake is sort of doing this ad-lib thing where he's like playing Posty's like wingman and turning in a truly groan-worthy performance while doing it. I was one of the first to say that Post Malone's shift into the country genre kind of surprised me with how decent and occasionally seamless it felt, but this is the absolute limit of his ability to sneak into this genre. It's pretty funny he teamed up with the guy who once claimed that we've all got a hillbilly bone and then turned around and delivered one of the least convincing performances from a non-country artist trying to make a country song I've heard in a very long time. It's no wonder Post has to go on the chorus and ask, y'all know how it goes, because he clearly does not.
I'm on it, buddy. Pour me a drink.
Number 5. I'm going to keep this one short. The Nepo Baby conversation that has emerged in recent years kind of reminds me of another thing that gets thrown around on the internet, that being industry plant allegations, primarily because neither of them are ever really delivered with any kind of systemic critique, just unpacked when it's any individual's turn to get criticized. The industry plant discourse peaked a few years ago when Gayle dropped her absolute disaster ABCDEFU, and while that song is generationally terrible, I don't inherently hate industry plants, and plenty of them have been planted well and gone on to do great things. I feel similarly about Nepo Babies. It's about talent on an individual level, but this year it was harder than ever to make that argument, and one girl was the reason why. I'm not really here to relitigate the entire Gracie Abrams debate that people have been having all year. She dropped her second album earlier this year. It took a pretty bad critical beating despite having a few big hits because she's functionally just playing pop star dress up and jumping from one extremely painfully obvious reference point to another. I didn't really care for any of the hits from that record, but I also didn't hate them. It was actually a few months later when she released a deluxe version of the album that featured a new single, which went on to become a hit. And hearing her do this awful plastic Lord dress up just made something snap in me.
Go and read your mind. Think about your
your dumb face all the time. Living in your glass house, I'm outside.
We're at the point on the list where I am really starting to hate these songs, and this is a good example of a track that just dug its nails a little deeper into me every single time I heard it, and it starts right out of the gate with this solar power ass acoustic guitar lick. The way she does her intimate, cocky little half-whispered vocals before gearing up the intensity of her delivery and performance on the very last line so that it has a little bit more punch to it, exactly the way that Lorde does and always has, is fucking infuriating. It also proves that Aaron Dessner's production can be exactly as fucking lame and flabby as Jack Antonoff's in the right situation. And this hook is awful, with no sense of flow, as Gracie just has to seemingly improvise like a whoa, 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 millennial whoa refrain just to kind of bring the chorus together and connect these refrains that feel like they weren't even written to be sung together.
Wait, I think I've been there too.
And as with all of Gracie's songs, wow, are some of these lyrics hard to swallow. Really hard to swallow. Think about your dumb face all the time, living in your glass house. I'm outside. Made it out alive, but I think I lost it. Said that I was fine, but I said it from the coffin? I think I like her, she's so fun. No, wait, I hate her. I'm not that evolved. As a matter of fact, this whole second verse has another one of those moments where the flow and the semblance of songwriting seems to break down completely, and it sounds like she's just fucking improvising at some point. That's So True doesn't just suck, it sucks in a way that's perfectly emblematic of all the criticisms that people have about Gracie Abrams. It shows off this personality-depleted pop star cosplay shtick that she's doing at its absolute worst, and I can't even believe this is true, but it somehow gives Nepo Babies an even worse reputation than they already had. Number 4. So back in 2020, Eminem released his album Music to Be Murdered By, and I wasn't crazy about it, but because it was a big record that a lot of people were talking about, I wrote a review of the album where I just listed one after another all of the trash, garbage, terrible lyrics on the record, just as a testament to how bad Eminem had got as a lyricist. And it worked at the time. So lyrical technician, an electrician, y'all light work. And you know I'm here to stay, cause me, if I ever take a leave, it would be an aspirin to break a feeve. This is a bad lyric, and it's made even worse by the fact that he feels the need to explain it in excruciating detail. And if you only know one lyric from this entire song, it's probably the one about Megan Thee Stallion. If I asked Megan Thee Stallion if she would collab with me, would I really have a shot at a feat? This lyric is clearly only here to try and offend people and to get people upset as a gimmick, but I think it's too stupid to do that because no one was mad at this, they just laughed at how bad it was. And it's extra funny how badly Eminem has to contort the flow of the lyrics he's delivering to try and fit them into this bar. He clearly really, really wanted to say this despite how embarrassing it is. And speaking of ruining the flow, this song also has a chorus where 52-year-old Eminem has to ad-lib bruh just so it flows together and the bars are completed. Verse number 2.
Now back in the days of old me, right around the time I became a dope fiend, ate some codeine as a way of coping, taste of opiates, case of OE.
Taste of opiates, case of OE, turned me into a smiley face emoji. This whole series of really embarrassing bars about cancellation and censorship and participation trophies. Ugh. How many kids want to act like me? I'm a bigger prick than cacti be. This one hurts extra bad because it's such a cheap lame ripoff of a better lyric on My Name Is. And of course, it leads into the similarly terrible, these words sting like you were attacked by bees. And oh my god, this unironic R. Kelly bar, and at this bar about a transgender cat. Listen, I am a transgender cat, so I'm gonna have to go ahead and stand on business for this one and say that we deserve better representation. This is god awful. Next. Number 3. We're at the point on the list where at one point or another I thought that any of these tracks in the top 3 really could end up being my least favorite hit song of the year. I'm still wearing the cat ears. In fact, earlier this year when the song we're going to talk about at number 3 first dropped, I made a TikTok where I said it was an early favorite for worst hit song of the year, and I'm glad to have been proven right by that. It comes from another one of these painfully obvious industry plants, one whose big break only came from the UMG TikTok beef that had a bunch of artists' music removed from the platform and opened the door for several other artists to get their music heard for a much wider platform. And boy, did this guy make the most of that opportunity. It has been since Louis fucking Capaldi himself that someone sang this loudly, this badly, and got a hit doing it. It's almost impressive.
Please stay. I want you, I need you, oh God.
Beautiful Things is not one of those songs that got worse and worse with time. It is a song that I was shocked by the very first time I heard it. My jaw dropped at how garish and painful to listen to the chorus of this track is, and it really comes after a dramatic build. The song is this rootsy, over-polished attempt at heartland rock, and then these driving drums, swelling instrumentation comes in, these pleading, earnest, or at least trying to be earnest lyrics, and what it all erupts into is, Jesus Christ, this.
These beautiful things that I've got, please.
This shit sounds like an alarm clock played through a megaphone directly into my face, full volume. But I don't even want to give too much credit to the rest of this song either. It was always going to be impossible to save this hook, but the track's attempts at sounding rugged throughout also don't really land. This guy feels about as authentic as Gracie Abrams, and yet, instead of trying to sound like another artist, he dared himself to do vocals like I have never quite heard before, seemingly in one take, because this is the worst possible way they could have sounded. And you know what? It still managed to be one of the biggest hit songs of the year, in case you're wondering if the NPCs really do live among us.
And I see my family every month. I found a girl my parents love.
As much as I want to make a joke about this idiot backflipping his way out of popular music, I'm not even sure he's in the upper echelon of hateable white boys who seem to trip and fall into popularity and success. I didn't love his next hit, Slow It Down, nor the album it came from, but they were an improvement. Supposed to be hard not to be an improvement. And to be honest, I'm not even that scared that he may hang around and have more hit songs. Maybe he'll be on the list again. All I know is this song is an instantaneous entry onto the Mount Rushmore of terrible, terrible singing in pop music.
These beautiful things that I've got.
Number 2. I know a lot of people watching don't listen to country music, but hear me out. Don't just skip ahead to number 1, because fans of all genres can gather around the hate train for this one, and it's because we're talking about Marshmello. This fucking hack has been farting his way through every genre he has ever heard for literally a full decade now, and being awful at every step of the way. Even compared to the other DJs, he's terrible. He makes the Chainsmokers look like fucking Daft Punk. Do you want to hear his worst song?
But I got one thing right.
You.
That track is called One Thing Right, a collaboration with country singer Kane Brown that dropped back in 2019, one that pretty much everyone hated immediately and knew was terrible right away, and Marshmello has spent the years since seeming to pretty genuinely try and one-up that terribleness, coming close a few times. But this year I think he may have finally one-upped himself, and wouldn't you know it, guess who's along for the ride?
And if you know what I mean, put some miles on it. Back of the Chevy with the engine running.
Bro country was always justifiably criticized for trying too hard to sound like hip-hop, and I'll be the first to admit it was funny watching Tyler Hubbard talk about how he's got Drake on his playlist, but the few country EDM crossovers that exist are infinitely worse. This song has all the lumpy, meaningless bravado of a bro country song, but with Marshmello's soupy, AI-generated EDM beats stuffed underneath. So what you get is a song about the ideal vision of car sex that people have in their heads, fed through this tube of country and EDM, and what comes out the other side feels kind of similar to what actually having car sex feels like.
All night, no breaks, I'll tell, no gate, ain't gotta try too hard, my baby's pushed to start.
And I know I get hung up on lyrics a lot, but come on. This is just the bottom of the fucking barrel. All night, no breaks, all tail, no gate. Oh God, my baby's pushed to start. This is sickening. It's like somebody at Kane Brown's label came up with the miles on it gimmick of like having sex in a car, and that's all they had, and then they handed it off to Lil Dicky to finish the rest of the lyrics. Not since Body Like a Back Road has a country song sounded this unsexy. And funny enough, both tracks make the mistake of comparing women to a fucking dirt road.
I'll torque, full speed, off-road, on me, 0 to 100 fast.
I hate this. It's not just that it's stupid, it is that it is the loudest and most confident stupid you can possibly imagine. From the frat bro innuendo to the embarrassingly shallow fantasies to the brain-thumping instrumental, it's so clear every element of this song feels like everyone involved really thought it was a good song. But this just transcends radio slop entirely. This is a special kind of bad song that we're lucky to only get once or twice a year. I would listen to 100 random Jelly Roll collaborations before I ever put Marshmello and Kane Brown back in the studio together. Please let this be the last time.
Break it in if you know what I mean. Put some miles on it.
Number 1, 7 years ago. Taylor Swift flopped.
Oh, look what you made me do. Look what you made me do. Look what you just made me do. Look what you just made me.
After a string of absolutely massive hits, Taylor Swift took on one of her biggest controversies head on with a poorly thought out and misguided, loose concept album about her reputation. The record was criticized by fans and absolutely slammed by critics, but here's the thing. I kind of like Reputation. I don't hate the big singles like everybody else does. It has some of my favorite deep cuts of Taylor Swift's entire career, and more importantly than anything, it was the first time that I actually gave a shit about Taylor and what she was doing as a pop artist. The first time she was actually interesting to me as a figure in popular music. And ultimately, the album landed shockingly high on the Taylor Swift discography rank I did a few years ago, which badly needs an update. But in 2024, Taylor flopped all over again.
My brand new album comes out April 19th. It's called The Tortured Poets Department.
This year, at the absolute height of Taylor Swift's fame, she dropped a catastrophe. A record whose lyrics were so bad that fans listening to leaked copies were circulating lyrics around for days in advance of the release that fans could not believe were true, and yet they were just the tip of the iceberg. And though all of the major publications, the ones that have to give this thing a good review or Taylor won't work with them, did do their lip service and give their good reviews, it was not long before a general consensus of both critics and pop music fans alike swerved around this album. Taylor had dropped this bloated haze of lengthy, completely lifeless tracks packed full of her most embarrassing tears in my diary 6th grade poetry, and then turned around and dropped a second album equally as bad. And I was right along for the ride. I did something I never do and made a video immediately reacting to the catastrophe that was the Tortured Poets Department, where I gawked at the lack of quality control and pointed out some of the biggest, though nowhere near all of its most embarrassing moments. The 1830s lyric from the anthology, What Was She Thinking? The awful touchdown lyric on Alchemy. Come on, baby. And so in one sense, yes, this is about the very worst hit song of 2024. But in a weird way, it's kind of coming from a place of appreciation. The last time there was a Taylor hate train this loud, I laid down on the fucking tracks. And this time around, I might as well be the goddamn conductor. Watching the biggest album of the year also be the biggest disaster reminded me of why I love pop music, why I love stan communities, why I love talking about music on the internet. And so I genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, have to say thank you to Taylor Swift. Thank you for everything. There are so many songs from this record that I could have put on the list, but Who's Afraid of Little Old Me is leaps and bounds worse than all of the other ones, and miles worse than any other hit song, or any other song, period, that I heard this year. Of course, the sound of the song is bad, just as bad as the rest of the album, where Jack Antonoff triumphantly anoints himself as the marshmallow of pop music. But like every song on Tortured Poets Department, the true disaster is the lyrics. This is one of the songs that many Taylor Swift stans online came to the defense of, arguing that it was bad on purpose, as if she's writing from the perspective of some character who's bad at writing. And I don't think anyone bought it. Like many of her most embarrassing moments, this one is achingly first person.
Keep your good name. You don't get to tell me you feel bad.
And it's bad right out of the gate, but the second half is where one disaster after another shows up. It is a series of lyrical punches that I cannot believe an adult woman, much less one of the most famous people on earth, released to the public. The bridge where she muses on everything really being about her afterwards and describes herself as disturbed, and of course that's immediately followed by the most universally clowned on lyric on the entire album.
Say the line, Bart! You wouldn't last an hour in the asylum where they raised me.
But she continues to spiral from there. The whole second half is just a disaster class. On the bridge, she tries to list a bunch of bad things that people have said about her, but all it really does is show how insanely thin-skinned Taylor Swift is. Like, people have said worse shit about me this week on TikTok than any of these lyrics, and I'm literally just some fucking girl. After which she claims to have been tame and gentle until the circus made her mean, and concludes it by insisting that you really should be scared of her, but does it in the most wimpy and toothless way imaginable.
Well, you should be.
It was an embarrassing 2024 for a lot of people. Everybody seems to think that Drake came out of the Kendrick Lamar beef with absolutely no credibility, and yet nothing that Kendrick said about him, from his funniest one-liners to his darkest observations, could possibly have embarrassed Drake as much as Taylor Swift embarrasses herself. This is perfection. This is bad music as a form of art. I mean this in the most genuine sense possible. No one other than Taylor Swift could have made this song, made it this loud, this embarrassing, flopped this badly in this big of a moment, and I wouldn't change a goddamn thing.
Who's afraid of little old me?
Thank you so much for watching, Angels. I'm sorry if you're furious right now. Stay tuned. Next up, we've got the best hits video, where I'm going to talk about some big popular songs and artists that I actually liked quite a bit. And as much as I love to roast bad music, it's a lot more fun to talk about the good stuff. So I'll be in better spirits. Hopefully you will be too. And hopefully it won't be too long before that video drops. I am really looking forward to getting these out and then looking forward to 2025. Thanks for watching. Love you. Kisses.